Welcome to the first video for this channel. Today I will be evaluating the performance of the MPP Solar all-in-one solar charger, battery charger inverter with the SOK server rack 5 kilowatt hour lithium iron phosphate battery. This over here is going to be the load center for the AC output of the inverter, and over here I have my first panel, my main panel, which feeds the AC input to the inverter. We'll be looking at the bypass mode and switch over to battery mode functions. We'll be trying some load testing as well. We will be looking at the sine wave under load, and also when it's idling we'll be calculating the efficiencies for the inverter and see how much losses we get when we're working in battery mode. Over here on the side I have various different loads. There's some electric heater loads: frying pan, toaster oven, a space heater, hot plate, battery chargers, a shop vac, a grinder, vacuum, and over here air compressor. I don't expect to power all these loads all at the same time. I know it's not going to. That's probably even more than the inverter capacity for the lv6548 here. Supposed to do 6500 watts. I'm not going to be able to load this inverter to 100%. I already know this battery here is supposed to be capable of doing 100 amps continuous discharge at the battery voltage. So given if it's 50 volts under a load, 100 amps, we're talking 5,000 watts of output power. And after inverter efficiency losses, we're looking at less than that. So all this stuff combined is going to be more than 5,000 watts. On the top left, there's also a table saw. We'll be doing some surge testing with the motors as well. So I first want to start with testing every single load individually on bypass mode, and then we'll switch each load individually over to battery mode and see if there's any differences in the wattage for the loads. We'll start with some of the space heater type of loads. A toaster oven. Now, a toaster oven has different settings on it. We're currently in bypass mode. If you can see this sheet of paper here, I've actually tested it prior. Here's the various different heat settings for this toaster oven and some of the wattages. Let's switch this to battery mode by disconnecting the AC input. We're in battery mode. AC amps over here. Switch to AC amps. 9.4 amps. On the DC side, let's have a look at that as well. From the battery, the software is showing 22 amps. Temperatures right now, 20 for the BMS, around 14 for the cells. Charge status, 99.6. So basically it's a full charge. We're starting from a full charge. Okay. DC amps, let's see. 21.6 on the one cable, and let's see the second, 26 on the second cable. Okay, that's the highest setting. Let's try a different load now. Let's try this frying pan over here on the side. Testing frying pan in battery mode as well. This frying pan on the left is doing 1500 watts, and that's fixed wattage, so you can't change the wattage. You can only adjust the temperature. On the battery, 31 amps. BMS software says it is doing 31 amps for the frying pan. AC amps 13. Okay, let's zoom in on the sine wave. Now this is in battery mode, so you can see there is ripple there on the peak. At the lowest at the highest point of the sine wave, you see a little bit of a dip. If we go to a higher load, let's see if that will smooth out a little bit. Try this hot plate back here. So unplug that. Testing hot plate. It's doing 1436 watts. The amps, it is 12.6 amps. Bypass mode. This is the direct power sine wave. So the waveform is not as smooth in AC bypass mode, of course. Let's go to battery mode. There's the inverter waveform, almost perfect waveform. AC amps is 12.5. BMS monitoring says 30 amps on the DC side. We'll check with our clamp meter. The load over here is still 1450 for the hot plate, so pretty much no difference. DC amps 29.7 on one cable, and then the other cable is doing 34. The next load we have, space heater. 1500 watt space heater. There's 3 different settings. Actually, there's 4. There's a fan only, a low, a medium, and a high. So right now we're on the high setting for 1500. It's close to 1500. This is still in battery mode. It's doing 1453. Check AC amps. 12.69. BMS software says 30 amps. Let's check on the battery. 29.9 on one cable, and the other cable is doing 34.4. Okay. Also, I should also test the lower heat setting. So this has like a low, medium, high. We're on high. Let's go medium. The wattage drops down to 900 watts. AC amps, 7.8. BMS monitoring says 19.2 amps discharge on the DC side. I should also check the battery voltage as well so we can calculate the inverter inefficiencies. Battery voltage, this load, we are doing 52.2 volts. The low setting, 586 watts. Call it 590 watts for the space heater. AC amps, 5.0. Discharge from battery is 12.5. So that's going to be pretty much all the space heater type loads. The next thing we'll do is surge testing. Let's try all the motors first, and then we'll have a bunch of space heaters on at the same time, and then we'll do surge testing with a motor and see if that will overload the BMS into overcurrent. So let's do the shop vac. Okay, so it was able to start that no problem, but we will also be measuring the surge amps as well as running amps. This is on watts. We're going to look at surge, AC surge, and DC surge for the motors now. We'll start with that orange rigid shop vac. If you're curious which one it is, that's what it looks like. It's this one right here. It's 5 peak horsepower. It's complete BS. I'll have this switch on, and then we'll control it with the breaker over here. This is in AC inrush mode. We're measuring inrush amps. We're currently still in battery mode, and we'll look at the waveform and see if it changes under load with the surge. So, yep, you see a little bit of a ripple there. The AC surge amp is 26.98. Let's try it again. One more time. 26.75. There's the waveform. If you want the running wattage, one last time for the surge test for the shop vac. 26 surge amps. The wattage is 950 watts. The running amps, 9 amps running amps. Let's check inrush for the battery. 56 on one cable. Let's test with the other cable, see if there's any difference. 57. Alright, so pretty close. Let's check running amps on the DC side. 19 on one cable. 23 on the second cable. BMS firmware says we're discharging at 20 amps. Okay, so that test was for the shop vac. Next, let's try this vacuum cleaner over here. This vacuum, it has the motor inside actually has a slower soft start. I don't think it will surge as much compared to the shop vac. That basically just means the motor gets up to speed a little bit slower. Something I should mention is this vacuum cleaner has a variable speed dial over here. I'll set this all the way to the maximum settings. We're gonna check DC amps. Let's start. .2 DC amps and 28.2 DC amps on the other cable. Let's check AC running amps. AC running amps at full speed for that vacuum cleaner is 11.11 amps. This is the waveform. That vacuum cleaner can actually distort the waveform a little bit. And it's actually because it's variable speed. As the motor was getting up to speed, the waveform was actually changing a little bit. So we're gonna try that again. Look at that. Look at that. Wow. That is so cool. Okay, that's off. Okay, let's check inrush on the AC side for that motor. It's 11.59. So this is interesting though. It doesn't have much of an inrush. This clamp meter actually has a VFD mode. So VFD stands for the variable frequency drive. It might be more accurate for this type of motor on the startup. Let's check DC inrush for this vacuum cleaner. Go to inrush mode, starting vacuum cleaner. .2 inrush. Running amps is 27.7 on one cable, and it's 23.4 on the second cable. BMS monitoring software says 24 amps discharge, and the pack voltage 52. If you want to know the running watts for that vacuum cleaner, 1155. Okay, now we're getting some serious stuff. The next thing I want to do is this air compressor down here. This is a 1 horsepower, 3 gallon. Check running amps, AC and DC, and we'll look at the surge amps, AC and DC as well. Okay, starting compressor for AC inrush test. That inrush is 45.92 AC amps inrush. One more time. So, inrush test. 46.2, and the running watts is 890. So, about 900 watts for this compressor. Let's turn that off again. One more time. Oh, it looks like, that was too much. That surge, this time, the third time, it was too much for this battery. I'll turn on the AC input again so we can keep the inverter on. You can see there's no sine wave. Whoops. Okay, I should have turned off the load first for the inverter to kick back on. I'm gonna try the surge test again on the AC side. Does it. 48.1 AC amps. Discharging at 20 amps from the battery. Let's check the AC surge amps on the AC side. Sorry, my mistake. The DC. Let's check the DC side. 110 for the inrush. Let's try the other cable. Shouldn't be that much different. Nope, it didn't do it this time around. Failed again. Even though the surge said 113, it just surprised. Even the compressor like this is too much. The few times we have tried starting this air compressor with these two battery inverter combinations, it failed to do that twice already. I think we tried a total of about 4 or 5 times. It had 2 failures. It's not looking too good. This is supposed to be able to do 100 continuous and 125 surge. We'll give it another try. It sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. We'll also watch the waveform. Here we go. There's a little bit of a ripple there. AC amps, 110. Check the other cable. I think this is like attempt number 6. We'll see if it fails it again. No. 110. So it can sometimes work and sometimes won't. Alright, the battery voltage right now is, it's showing 52.9, but I want to check that. Pack voltage 52.9. Okay, very accurate. Let's check again under load with the air compressor. Ooh, it failed to start. Couldn't do it. I didn't have this on inrush mode, so I don't know what the amps was, but the point is that failed. Turn on AC input. I will have to go back when I review the video and see how many startup attempts we tried with this compressor, and we probably had about 3 failures out of maybe 7 or 8 times. That BMS in this battery is pretty weak. Not impressed so far. Let's wait for that to reset, and then we'll just go on to our next load. We'll try this grinder here. Supposed to be 8 amp. It is variable speed. 6 is the high setting. Of course, we're going to do the high setting. We're back in battery mode. BMS has reset. We are going to check inrush. I'm going to need my tripod because I have to hold this on switch for the grinder, and I got to switch on the breaker, so I can't hold the camera. I'll just have to, set the camera on the tripod. Try to get AC amps on video. Can I start a 8 amp grinder? Okay. There you go. It did it. 100 amps, 107 amps, a surge. Let's try a couple more times and see if we get like a % chance failure, just like the air compressor, where sometimes it can start, sometimes it'll fail to start. Test number 2. 108. 108 for the second try. Let's do a couple more times. Let's see if we get a failure on the third, because that's what happened with the air compressor. I'm not confident. Ready? See that? Yeah. Not impressed. Artists sometimes fail and sometimes won't. And this time when it failed, it actually did 88 amps. Well, the clamp meter measured 88. AC input. Just a quick reminder, at this point, we are still testing all the loads individually. We got one more left to go. After this grinder, it's going to be the table saw. And I think it's going to fare even worse because I have measured the AC inrush on the table saw. It's still higher than this grinder. And the air compressor. So I don't expect it to do well for that. I know that already, but the fact that sometimes it will fail for the grinder and the air compressor, that's disappointing. Battery has reset. Go back to battery mode. Third try. 112. Sorry, 111. 111. Of course, you gotta repeat a few more times just to be sure, right? 105. Let's keep testing. Will it fail again? It does happen though. It does happen and it can fail. I'll check the AC running amps for the grinder and we'll look at the waveform. How about that? 550 watts. 500. The ACF is 5.32. This thing is so loud. It's actually worse than the table saw. I prefer the table saw noise over the grinder. So we had some failures with the grinder. Next, we're gonna do the most extreme surge test. A single load. That's gonna be the table saw. We're gonna check AC amps in. We're just gonna start with checking inrush on bypass mode. Ready to start. Bypass mode surge test. Here we go. It draws 1,000. It's 1,000 watts on the surge amp. 68.9. Here's the AC waveform. 68.9 amps surge on grid. Let's reset the clamp meter and try that one more time. Surge 71.5. Going to battery mode, you can watch the waveform and the surge amp. Will it start it? 65 amps. Wow. This is the waveform on battery mode. Have a look at that. Okay, so it was able to do it. We saw 65.2 amps AC inrush. Let's try it a few more times. Attempt number 2. It said 59.2 amps inrush. It failed this time, the DC surge. Let's measure that. Battery's back online. Will it try it the third time? Nope. 141 amps on the DC surge. 141. That's a difficult one to start. You know, it is a really crazy surge. I don't expect it to start the table saw every single time, but at the very least, it should be able to do the grinder and the compressor without a problem. We'll try a few more times, and then the next thing we'll do is combination of different loads. We'll go back to the shop vac, which has a lower surge, and then we'll pair that with a space heater. Attempt number 4 with the table saw. Will it start? No. Amps on that try was 63. 1 out of 4. Battery has reset. Let's go back to the orange shop vac, which has a weaker surge, and we'll add a 1,000 watt toaster oven load, and then we'll add the motor. 1,000 watts on the toaster oven first. 23 amps discharging. Okay, I've got inrush mode testing. 1,000 watt load. Now we're gonna add shop vac. Will it start? No problem. Let's try again. What's that surge? 35.68. Second try. 36, the second try. Let's see what the AC running amps is in total. 9.4 amps going. What's the shop vac? 1117.74. Let's go to a bigger load. Let's add the space heater right here. Medium is around 930 watts. So 930 plus 1,000, just under 2,000 watts. 1,900 plus the shop vac for surge. Check AC amps right now. 17.2 already AC amps. That's a bit hard to see. But check inrush. Gotta have an inrush mode first, and then you apply the clamp on. You go into inrush mode and it already shows you a number. What the heck is going on? Okay, whatever. If it does it, it can do it, you know. That's all that matters. The important thing you care about is, can it start that load? Space heater on medium setting, plus the toaster on the high setting, and we're gonna surge with shop vac. No, it's too much. Okay. Inverter is back online. Now let's see if we can do the space heater on the low setting. Space heater low setting is at 580. We'll still keep the toaster oven on the high setting, so this will be 1500 watts. And we're also going to add the shop vac. Yes, it does. You can do it. Let's try it again. No problems. Let's put that space heater on high setting. We'll put this toaster on the lowest setting, which is 250 watts. So we'll do 1500 plus 250, 1750. Add the shop vac as a surge. Compared to this was 1000 and 580. Okay, so now we're going to do 1500, 250. Did it, no problem. Second try. Gotta verify that the toaster oven is actually on. I got this power strip here. I'm gonna run the toaster oven on this. The stupid cord is just too short, man. Let's try it again. It does it. Let's go to the second highest setting for this toaster oven with 500 watts plus the 1500 space heater. So 2000 watts now, then add the shop vac. Fail. Couldn't do it. So now we know. With the surge of that shop vac and a 2000 watts of space heater loads, it will not do the surge. If we go back to the warm setting, which is the lowest, 250 watts for this, plus 1500 on the space heater for 1750, battery BMS will handle the surge. Battery state of charge, we're still at 92%. No problems. That's we're switching it on all at the same time with this breaker. Let's see how it does. No problem. One more time. Oh, that's a surprise. How did it fail that? We did it a whole bunch of times back to back. It worked just fine. This is on the warm setting. This right here is on the warm setting. This is on the highest setting, which is 1500. 250, 1750 plus the shop vac. It just failed it. The BMS is in error mode. It went to overcurrent. This is, oh my goodness. This is just no good. This is no good. I just said it could handle the toaster oven, this on a 250 watt heat setting, that 1500 space heater, and it can surge for the shop vac. And just as you saw it, it failed to do it. What is going on with this, the BMS and the battery? We'll keep testing. Again, same thing just like before. We'll switch everything on with the breaker here. No. It's possible it could not do it because I'm trying to switch on all the loads at the same time. I'll do it like I previously tried before. The two heaters are on first, and then we'll add the shop vac. Yes, it will. Ha! We got it to fail that time. At the very end, I was flipping the switch on the shop vac like really quick. As soon as it tried to spin up, I switched it off, try it again a second time really quick, and that caused it to overcurrent. Alright, for this next test, we will look at the maximum discharge current for the battery. We'll see if it can actually sustain 100 amps. Let's check state of charge right now, 87%. Do temperatures, 32 Celsius for the BMS, around 14 to 15 for the batteries. The cell voltages are on exactly 3.3. Okay. The loads we'll be testing with 1500 watt electric pan, the space heater on the high setting, 1500 watts, and this toaster oven on the high setting, which is bake, also at 1000. So 1500, and 1000. We'll be looking at AC amps, and we'll also measure DC amps on the battery as well. So let's switch the loads on first. We're still in bypass, and I'll disconnect. I'll switch off the AC input. So that draws right now 34.62 amps in bypass mode. Let's also check the voltage, 118.3. Let's switch off AC input. Now we're on battery. It's also 34.6 amps. Let's look at voltage, 119, holding strong. Discharging at 86.5 amps. That's the BMS software. Check the battery, 86.7. So basically it's the same. We'll let this run for a moment because I've had situations where this exact load, I've seen over current protect kick in. This cable is 89.5 and the second cable is 94. We should also check battery voltage as well. 89.5. Let's look at battery voltage. .9 volts on battery voltage. Yeah, there you go. You just saw it. It kicked into OCP. Okay. That was almost a minute. See, OCP. BMS status. It says OCP for Y. That means yes. We can actually do the efficiency calculations now. So it's 34.4 amps times 119 volts. So that gives us 4,093 watts on the AC load. We will average the DC amps on the DC side. So the loads are back on. This is on, that's on, and this is on at 1,000. Going to battery mode. DC amps. Oopsie. One cable is 89.2. The second cable is showing 93.4. So let's average that. 93.4 plus 89.3. 89.3 equals 182.7. Divide that by 2. So it's an average amps of 91. Let's look at the BMS status before it shuts off again. It says 86. Over here, 86.98. Let's check the battery voltages, of course, because it will disconnect in just a moment. 50 volts. You saw it. It showed 87 amps on the screen here. The BMS software shows 87 amps. I measured 93 and 88 on the two battery cables. Averaging that gives us 91.3 amps. And that's 50 volts. So we can do 91.3 times 50. That's 4567 amps on the DC side. Space heater loads on the AC side is 119 volts, 34.4 amps, 4093 watts. So we can now calculate the inverter losses by doing 4093 by 4567. That puts us right at 0.89. So that's close to 89% efficiency for the lv6548.